In November 2020, the people of Clare Island were asked by the Department of Rural and Community Development what their ferry service needs were. But when the tender for the Clare Island ferry contract was published in May 2021, these needs have been completely ignored. Now Clare Islanders are asking the department to urgently change the tender and give their community a fair chance to survive.
I have been working remotely from the island as a legal consultant for a tech giant for the last number of months now. There have been many improvements made on the island in the last number of years that have made moving back a potential option for many of those who have moved away. The broadband services, to name one major advancement. So now, even if you're not a farmer or a fisherman or woman, or even interested in going into that line of work, earning a living on the island is now a conceivable notion and not just a pipe dream. However, the one area that has been extremely neglected by the relevant authorities is the ferry subsidy for the island. There has been little to no improvement made to the Clare Island tender since its introduction. The fact that other islands have a far superior service and the benefits of it can be seen in the stabilisation of their population and the number of young people living and working on those islands is a fine example of how key the service is to the survival of Clare Island. We implored the department to review the tender with young people in mind and to understand how important it is that the level of service provided is improved upon. We have reached a crucial moment in Clare Island's future. A vibrant community is possible for many years to come if we are supported to the same extent as our island neighbours off Cork, Galway and Donegal.
We're running the risk of losing families to the mainland once their children reach secondary school age. If parents choose to have their children at home or choose to keep them here and that they should be able to commute daily to secondary school, that's an absolute human right. The family shouldn't have to be broken up. This service that may have been fit for purpose a quarter of a century ago is certainly not fit for purpose now, and the department and the minister must look at this.
We've lived here for 6 years on the island, raising our young family. It's a great place for small kids, but I think it becomes a very difficult place to live for parents who have children that are secondary school age. I've seen other parents go through it where they have to send their children out to Louisburg to secondary school. They go out on a Monday morning, they call it the depression boat. The children cry. It's very heartbreaking for the parents to send their children off knowing they won't see them again until Friday evening. For me, even though I love our life here, unless my children can commute to school out in Louisburg, I can't see us staying on the island.
Ferry service is very important to me. It's how I get in and out to the island. It's our roads, it's our mode of transportation. I had to move off the island recently, but it was reluctantly because the service wasn't there for me to work in Westport, and I couldn't get a job on the island. If the service was there, I would be using it every day. The tender document has now kind of progressed with time and with needs. So two sailings is not enough anymore. It's clearly not enough. Commuting, technology, all that kind of stuff, everything has moved on, and the tender process needs to move on, and the amount of sailings needs to be upped. If you look at all the other islands around Ireland, you can see their sailings, you can see the money allocated to them. We've shown the department, the research and with the islands, and the discrimination is clear to see there.
A number of years ago, I started a business in Westport. I'm a hand weaver living on Clare Island, and I opened a gallery with 3 other women. I was hoping to commute 3 days a week, which was my obligation in the gallery. And it was proving impossible because of the timing of the ferries. So I had to, in the end, give up the gallery because of inadequate transport facilities. The whole idea about having a subsidized service was to give better access to the people living here. And this is not the case. People are not able to go to their jobs on the mainland, go to their appointments, and have an adequate connection. We're getting less service for the people that live here, and we want equality.
Well, the ferry service is very important to me. At the minute, I'm living on the mainland, working on the mainland from Monday to Friday. The main thing for working on the mainland, living on the island, would be reliability. It'd be no good having set amount of ferries a day if you weren't guaranteed that you could get out to work in the morning. My main concern would be lack of provision in the contract for what happens with secondary piers in the case that Runa can't be used due to swell. There might be one ferry in at a certain time of day, but that's not really much good to anyone. In terms of just making sure that the ferry service is run as laid out in the contract, that buses are there to meet the ferries when needed, and that the secondary pier is being used to its full capabilities. I think we're being discriminated in the fact that we have to use Runa pier during the wintertime as our first pier, which is an absolute death trap. It's just a miracle that nothing's happened in it so far. Work needs to be done on Runa to make it safe and make it reliable, or they'll just have to start looking at alternatives.
The ferry service is extremely important to me as a single mother. I haven't been able to get home to see my child due to bad weather, change in ferry times, the cancellation of the ferry and inadequate piers, and it's just not good enough anymore. We need to make this better. The department asked the island community for our input, and upon receiving our input, they've completely ignored our requests. And to be honest, this is disgraceful and it's really unfair. 2 sailings a day is just not adequate enough for the needs of the island community. It's a commuting island now, and we need to make sure that we can get something in place that works for everybody on the island, especially to keep our population from declining anymore. I also think the department need to take a look at how each island differs and that their point system for the tenders can't work the same for each island.
To say this recently published tender has been a huge disappointment for me would be an absolute understatement. Personally, I rely on the ferry a lot in order to play football. I've been playing with Leesburg LGFA since I was 13, and since I started going to school in Santa Maria College. You know, when you're 13, 14, 15 and you spend 4 or 5 nights away from home, your weekends are precious. I always thought I had to make them sacrifices because where I came from, you know, that was a consequence of living on Clare Island. But now that I'm older, I realise that that's just not true. The government can change this tender. You know, they can give us 4 sailings a day, and kids like I was can get home from football. You know, it wasn't a case of my mum dropped me off at training on a Friday evening and picked me up and I went home. I went to someone else's home. I had no choice. But the government do have a choice when it comes to this tender. They can make the change for us. And it's not just Clare Island. You know, rural communities all over Ireland are being neglected and they're being overlooked, and it's not fair. There's a lot of people my age who would love to come back to Clare Island in the future and make a living and, you know, raise a family. But realistically, if I was to have a family, I don't want kids of mine to have to go through what I went through.
I do think that the island has been discriminated against. I think all English-speaking islands usually are discriminated against when it comes to departments. And the trouble is, I suppose, that people from the department have never been to an island, any island maybe, especially in bad weather. So they don't really know what they're talking about, so they have to listen to local ferrymen or local people.
The current tender application that has been sent out by the department has been published by completely disregarding the opinions of the Clare Island people, who were asked to submit what we as a community felt was needed from our ferry services in order to survive going forward. I'm sick of having to decide whether or not I should come home and be able to help out on the farm or stay in the mainland to train and keep my spot on the team. I'm sick of having to decide whether or not it's worth bringing a sick animal to the vet in order to sit around for 8 or 9 hours just to wait to get the ferry home again. I'm sick of having to make dangerous journeys in small boats in weather conditions that really shouldn't allow, just to get around the fact that we don't have a regular ferry service. But unfortunately, unless the services change here, the chances are that I'm going to have to decide that I'm either going to have to change occupation or I'll never be able to move home to live here. These are not decisions that a lack of public transport should be making for me.
Like so many others, we now have a unique opportunity to continue to live and work on the island moving forward. That in itself is a major testament to the island and the huge improvements it has made over the last number of years. However, one major drawback that Marion and I, and indeed many other young people, have experienced with living on the island is the number of available subsidised ferries to the people of the island. With the current number of sailings available, it unfortunately will mean that moving to the mainland is very much a strong possibility. This is not something we want to do, and certainly will have a negative impact on the future development and sustainability of Clare Island. Is this really what the department want to promote? I don't think so. We implore you to review the current situation and at the very least offer Clare Island a fair opportunity on this critical service. Thank you.